By the late 60s, the remaining parts of the British Empire were shutting up shop, and a new group of Asians were beating a path to Blighty. They didn't come from Asia, but from Africa, and were part of the largest ever influx of Asians to Britain. And like the Indian doctors and Bangladeshi chefs, this lot set their sights on another British institution that was in dire need of a makeover.
Love don't live here anymore.
They chose to go into an area which nobody would have gone into. You know, the corner shops were dying all over the place, but the Asians came.
Napoleon called England, famously, the nation of shopkeepers. That's how he characterized England. And it's a kind of wonderful irony that today, in the 21st century, that nation is being defined by Asian corner shops.
So wake up.
Asian shopkeepers left East Africa in their thousands during the 60s and 70s to settle here.
We would never have had Sunday opening, which everyone now takes for granted, if it hadn't been for that, the influence of the hard-working Asian corner shopkeepers. It wouldn't have happened. You know, we'd still be back in the sort of dark ages of closing on Wednesday afternoons.
The Patel clan run most of the corner shops in Britain. Theirs is a remarkable story of a people who've moved twice over 2 continents. They're not originally from East Africa, but from wealthy farming stock in the Gujarat state of northwest India. Many of the Patels in Britain have their roots in just 6 villages. The trail from rural India via East Africa to a London corner shop begins around 100 years ago with a massive empire-building programme.
The Brits were building railways in East Africa, well, all over the world. So what did they do? They brought a group of people from South Asia to work in the railways as carpenters and builders and what have you. Now, those who were enterprising in South Asia could see a potential business opportunity. So the very best of the business people, the enterprising, the daring, the risk takers said, we'll follow that group and start supplying their goods and their services and their needs. And they succeeded.
It was the canny merchants from Gujarat who made the trip over the Arabian Sea to seek their fortunes in Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda, where they remained happily for 70 years doing what they did best, trading. But when Kenya broke free from British rule in 1963, it was the start of a wave of African independence. Over the next decade, Asians found themselves increasingly unwanted. Nowhere more so than in Uganda, where a ruthless dictator, General Idi Amin, seized power and in 1972 ordered all Asians out within 3 months.
I want to see that the whole Kampala street is not full of Indians. It must be proper black, and administration in those shops is run by the Ugandans.
What will you do to them if they don't go by the time limit?
I think they will be sitting like they are sitting on the fire. I will tell you this. You just wait after 3 months.
What will you do to them?
Okay, you will see.
The Putney family are from Gujarati stock. They'd worked in the jewellery business in Uganda for generations.
I was about 8.5 to 9 years old, and all of a sudden Idi Amin announced all the Asians were supposed to be out by a certain date. He goes, all you Asians, he said, you live in this country, yeah, but you got bank accounts in England. He goes, you can get out now. Now if he didn't go, he would have shot the Asians.
I got 1 ring and 1 wristwatch, but I'm afraid because as soon as I'll reach on the Entebbe airport, the army officers on the customs department, they remove my wristwatch and the ring, and so I brought my goods back from Entebbe airport and I could not go.
Mr. Idi Amin, he announced that you are only allowed to take £100 per family and 2 gold bangles. My dad was getting more busier because all his customers, they brought all their gold to melt down and make it into 2 bangles.
They have taken my gold watch, is worth about 300 quid. They have taken my pounds, they have taken my Uganda money, also about 840 shillings. And completely, most of them have lost the gold. Bangles, these ladies have been robbed, bangles, chains, Nothing has been left. Rings, diamond rings, and everything.
You know, people who were leaving homes in Uganda still sort of had all their gold bangles from their weddings, and that was all they were allowed to take. They would take it. They were stripped of it bit by bit as they approached the airport, to the point when they entered the plane, they had nothing.
I knew you needed a friend. I knew you needed some blue skies.
First thing we noticed was the cold hit our face straight away. I thought, you know, it was like freezing here. And they put us into this sort of like a camp system for 10 days. But my dad's sister was already here in '68, and they came to pick us up and brought us to Leicester, which was a 2.5 bedroom terraced house. And there was me, my 2 brothers, my mum, my dad, his mum, 3 uncles and 3 aunties lived in that little terraced house at that time.
Between 1968 and 72, at least 90,000 East African Asians, many penniless and destitute, arrived in Britain. The sheer numbers proved a major headache for the new Conservative government, which had promised to halt large-scale immigration.
Coming over thick and fast now, and I'd like to think that they're going to put a halt to it shortly.
Well, I think it's about time the government took over its responsibilities and sent these people back to their country of origin. Just because they've got a British passport doesn't mean to say that they can come into this damn country. We're getting absolutely flooded out with them.
I took the view then that they were really not our problem. And I was very unhappy that we should have broken an election pledge, but I just felt that we'd got enough problems to be integrating a lot of people already, and we didn't need any more.
Rather than preparing to pack, it was preparation of saying how to say goodbye to people. That 2 weeks, you know, we'll see you again, and that kind of stuff. I mean, that was hard.
Yeah. And who are you going to have to say goodbye to? I mean, all of your friends, presumably, for a start.
Well, friends of Asian origin, you were all going to say goodbye to each other. Then my little local connection had that. Quite sad, like Pet Monkey and things like that.
Yeah.
Very hard.
Yeah.
Very hard.
And, I mean, how much did you actually physically take with you? How much were you allowed physically to take? What you know, 2 suitcases or 1 suitcase?
1 suitcase, and you were all searched. So if you thought you could hide your jewellery and, you know, wear as kids, you know, parents, you were all searched like they do nowadays for anything as you go in the airport.
Right, okay.
I think for my dad it was because there were a lot of my sisters, and it was the security element that was more important.
Yeah.
And although I was nearly 13, it was also, my sisters were a few years older, it was the terrifying stories that were about, you know, abusing and raping women and all of that. That was the most scary bit. And sometimes it was told that, you know, in front of your families you were raped and stuff. And no amount of wealth, gold, mattered as much as the safety of your women. It's very hard, but when you're abroad, you have a picture of England from books and images, and there are limited images. So you, for instance, have a photograph of the London Bridge of London, and you imagine properties to be this, as they do in English books, this semi-detached house with a front garden and a front apple tree, and, you know, those kind of nice painted pictures. Because immediately you realise when you land in Warsaw, that's not the case. The streets and dim and gloom, and it was just grey, and I thought they were just factory stores like the Ginnery, but they weren't. They were houses. that was a bit of a difficult one to digest. I was put in this classroom, and it's just like all these white kids, nearly 12, 13, because I was nearly 13 then, and they were introduced by the teacher to say, here's Shushila, and she's from Uganda, and left us introduced, and I don't know what else was said, but a general introduction, and we have to welcome them from Uganda. So after a few hours, I think when the teacher wasn't in the classroom, the kids came over and said, "Am you from Uganda? Oh, did you meet Tarzan? I couldn't understand us," because I was just scared now, just this kid, what do you say? I don't understand, because the Darlaston accent, Midlands, black country accent, really strong black country accent. "Am you hungry?" Don't understand. Couldn't understand, and then I kept on thinking to myself, this is not England, obviously, the street's not looking like England, they're not speaking English. It was lunchtime, or coming back home, and saying to my brother, do you think parents have lied to us, like this is not England?
And my dad looked very grave at that time. My mom was looking a bit, down. And I understood I sensed that they were closing the business down. Shops were closing. The meat shop was closing. And Dad had to stay behind because he had to make sure everything was closed, from the shops and all that. He had to sell everything and all that. And all I remember is Mom getting us dressed for the day, and I decided we went to the shop. We took about 4 layers of dresses on, underclothes, about 3 underclothes, vests and underwears, so it's less to carry, and plus that would keep us warm because we didn't know what it was going to be like. Sweaters, 3 sweaters on top. I mean, we must have looked ridiculous. We must have, because I can't imagine any other way of explaining it. I wish I had a photograph to remember what we, in those days, even to get a photograph was a big thing. Nobody owned a camera, things like that. So you can't imagine what we must have looked like. Really, it was a terrible journey in the aeroplane. My ears were popping, crying my eyes out because I couldn't understand, and uncomfortable with all the clothes we were wearing. And I remember coming down the steps of the aeroplane, and Mum said, don't look, they're photographers. And I couldn't understand. I couldn't understand. There must have been reporters everywhere. There were loads of reporters. We were part of the exodus. Now looking back, we were part of the exodus. We were the first few that were coming down. And there were still reporters everywhere. In the airport, we're coming down the aeroplane, everybody rushing to take photographs, and I wanted to be in the picture. And I sometimes wonder if anybody actually took a picture, what I must be looking like, But anyway, here I am, big smiles, somebody's taking a photograph. Oh, if only I knew what a sad situation, how they must be perceiving us, refugees coming in. It must be really bad, embarrassing when you're thinking about it. Anyway, so off we came down, and then we went into the journey here, and I'm looking at all these houses, and I'm thinking, I think I've seen England enough. I think I want to go back now. That was my impression, because everything looked the same.
So how much did you actually come with? How many things did you come with?
Just only my suitcase. And before over here, don't get nice grocery. I bought a little bit of grocery and everything. And bed sheets and blankets.
So not very much.
No.
We was not citizen of Kenya. That's why we have to leave to Kenya, because my husband's passport was British passport. That's why my husband wants to come here. I don't want to come here. He wants to. Then we came here in 1972. Then we came here, we was living in a rented flat. When I came here, my daughter was 3 years old. She was going in the nursery. I was not satisfied here because there was living was very difficult here. In Kenya was very living was nice, you know. That's why I came very depressed here. I was mourning every day. When I wake up in the morning, I was crying. I said, why we came here? I don't like here, I want to go back. Then every day, morning. In Kenya, there was our shop, business shop.
What sort of shop was it?
Clothing shop.
Ah.
Because we was not citizen of Kenya. So we have to citizen. If we are citizen of Kenya, then we can get license to run the business. You know. That's why we have to come here. Here, my husband was he was doing bus conductor job. He was doing. Now I was going in the factory job. You know. He was bus conductor. Then somebody stabbed him in the stomach knife. Then in 1 month he was in the hospital. It was Westminster Hospital City. He was 1 month in the hospital. Then after he died, after 15 years ago.
I'm very sorry. Very sorry.
Then I'm living now. Me and my daughter, she came now. She is now 35 years old. Now we are living together. Me and my daughter. Yes, I'm feeling very lonely now.
My brother, he was in Plasto, he moved in Gensip, and most of the people from Newham, because they need bigger houses, the children are grown up, and now most of the people. So I think after Newham, the Redbridge is the next one. People are coming. And some who want bigger house, they go further up, but most of the people prefer, Gujaratis prefer this area than Baki or Deccan. I don't know why, but maybe there is no more facilities.
When I came in this country, you know, all the time you close your doors, front door, net curtain, everything. I feel, you know, like prison. Really, I like that time, like prison, you know, in Africa and India we are open the door, front door, all the time. And it's okay.
So your first impressions of England, you thought it was very cold?
Weather-wise, now it's okay, but that time is, you know, snow. ઘણો સ્નો પડતો હતો ને ત્યારે એટલા વર્ષ પહેલા એટલે મને ત્યારે જરા બહુ ગમતું નહોતું એમ.
She didn't like it before because it was snow, cold.
Yeah. Now I'm used to it.
At that time things were not going very smoothly. So I thought it maybe is a big gamble now. I thought that their future may be limited there, even if I decide to stay on. And because being a civil servant, and after serving, say, almost 20 years in the civil service, I thought it would be wrong for me to go into business or anything. So I decided to pack up and come to UK and start a new life here.
And was that decision difficult for you?
Well, I was waiting for a couple of years whether to take the decision or not to take the decision. So I was thinking all the time, but then made up my mind finally that I better take a chance. So that is how I moved to UK. I don't know, we still call ourselves East African mostly, though. That we are from East Africa now. And we get on very well with the East Africa, those who are from East Africa. When we know he's from Nairobi, he's from Tanzania, or he's from Uganda, we feel very sort of at ease with them, to be honest. Although here in our local clubs, there are a lot of people from India directly. We meet with them also. Some of them we
mix up, go to parties and all that. But still with the East African, because they were of the same sort of place they have come, so we are sort of more at ease with them.
Sense of
We
experience.
know their habits, we experience life they have seen, life we have seen.
Did you ever manage to sort of travel? I mean, I guess it wasn't too long before that your parents came over. Did you think you were going to travel back and visit them again?
I was dying to go back. As soon as I took my first exam, I went back to see them, which was just 2 months before we got the ultimatum.
Yeah.
So I was there after taking my first exam.
Yeah.
And my dad said, "What on earth? Why are you coming here?" He used the same reasons that his dad had used on him. Saying, "Don't have to go look back, just look forward now." So it was like a continuation of migration.
Yeah.
You know, he used the same words, and he used to be very blunt. Said, "What are you coming back for? There's nothing to come back for. We're all going to live here." I always felt safe in Uganda. Although I know when I went there just 2 or 3 months before, the security situation was getting worse all the time. It was a beautiful daytime. In the evening, you had to have your heart in your hand and sleep, because you never knew when you were going to be burgled or broken into or things like that. So that was the worry. That was the only worry. Otherwise, Uganda was reasonably safe. Until that. Yeah. So I never worried about that. No matter what Amin did, I thought the international community would come to our rescue. You know, even if he did stupid things. Probably because I had this concept that we were holding British passports, so Britain would have some sort of obligation towards us. He booked a ticket, and I think he speeded it up. You know, why he speeded? Why Dad decided to take the next plane out? Because a gun was pointed on his head by the army.
Yeah. He said he had enough.
Then at that stage, he just dumped the whole lot. He said he's not interested in packing anything. He's not interested in taking anything from Uganda. He's just, let's take the next flight out.
Yeah. Everything you had packed had to be emptied on tables at the airport for the army to check. And now and again, obviously, I remember seeing them helping themselves to certain items, whatever they wanted, and the rest you. So it really was. It's like final interrogation before you leave. I remember we all arrived with a suitcase each, and I think the maximum allowance you were allowed was £50. £50 per person to bring out of the country, and.
I'm not sure that Dad waited for that.
No, he didn't. They declared that of your savings you could take £50 per person. That's it.
He didn't worry about that.
But it wasn't the only thing. In fact, looking back now, I realise. I remember the sense. Suddenly, there was a sense of urgency. Whatever was there, get rid of it, or we could take just the essentials and go. So I think you could bring only 20 kgs per person. So that's hardly.
So just the clothes.
Yeah. And of course, we're used to wearing summer clothes all the year round. And when we came here, we had it was October. Winter had, well, as far as we could see, winter had set in. It might have been winter here, and really felt the cold. And you could see hadn't seen so much mist before. We landed at Stansted, and but the reception we got was very good. It was fantastic. Excellent reception. It was like going to another Indian family, as it were, except the difference was it was the English people had received us so well. Well, we were seen through. We didn't have any customs to go through, and tea and coffee and little bitings were laid on at the airport, and then from there we were driven by coach to the various camps. In our case, it was camp in Newbury, Berkshire, and again the facilities had laid on, and the centrally heated barracks. It was quite very good. They'd set up a school within the first few days or a couple of weeks. They'd set up a school in the camp itself, and it was like one had a small break, and we were back to school. Except you were back to school in a different country. So the transition was made very easy.